Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Waples here, and today we're going to talk about
the United States Constitution.
We're going to start off with a breakdown of the major principles found therein, and then we'll finish off with a quick rundown of how the document is organized and a close read of the preamble's opening line. As a result of today's flipped lecture, you should be able to define the following constitutional principles: supremacy, popular sovereignty, limited government, federalism, separation of powers, checks and balances, flexibility, and civil liberties. You should be able to identify the major topic of each article in the Constitution, and finally, you should be able to interpret the significance of the phrase "we the people" in the Constitution's preamble. Let's get started. The United States Constitution was a stroke of brilliance. It came with 8 major constitutional principles that would grant, divide, and balance the power of the federal or national government. This entire course is built upon these 8 principles. We will see real-world examples of them time and time again, but before we get to that, let's start with the basics and define each. First off, we've got the constitutional principle of
supremacy.
According to Article 6, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. This means that if there is ever a conflict, the federal laws are superior to the state laws. In other words, if there is a federal and state law about the same issue, then the federal law trumps the state law. The federal law would be supreme compared to the state law. Next, there's the concept of
popular sovereignty.
Now, this one should sound familiar after our talks about Enlightenment ideas and the Declaration of Independence, but to review, in a democracy or republic, the people are the source of the power. They determine who has the authority to govern. This principle is found in the preamble or introduction of the Constitution. Next, there's the principle of
limited government.
The Constitution took great care to spell out the specific powers of the federal government and what powers are denied. For example, the government cannot give preferential treatment to one state over the others. It is also not allowed to grant titles of nobility to any citizen. So Lady Gaga cannot legally actually be considered a lady. It's just a title that we call her as a singer, not nobility.
You hear that? He thinks he's funny.
Next up, the principle of
federalism.
Federalism is the division of power between the national and state governments. I like to think of a big F when I consider federalism. Imagine that this bar represents all the powers of the government. In a monarchy or a dictatorship, the federal government would handle all of this, but then there would be no room for states, local governments, or individuals to have any say. If I were to slap a big old F over this bar, then I would have some nice barriers to divide powers so that the federal government does the big jobs like protecting national security, leaving the state governments to the local jobs like issuing driver's licenses and designing school curriculum. In fact, most state constitutions are also designed with federalism in mind, dividing powers of the governor and the local officials like mayors and town supervisors. We'll talk more about which specific powers belong to the federal government and to the states later, but for now, remember that federalism divides power between the two. Next, there's the principle of
separation of powers.
Even with the ideas of limited government and federalism, there was still some danger of the federal government becoming too powerful. To counter this, the Constitution splits the powers of the federal government between 3 different branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. The Founding Fathers thought that if these 3 branches were constantly competing for power, then one would never be able to overcome the other. To make sure of this, they also built in the principle of
checks and balances.
In order to carry out a task, one branch often needs the approval of another branch to proceed. Therefore, the branches of government are constantly checked and balanced by the others. This was created to prevent one of the three branches from becoming more powerful than the others. For example, although the president, the executive branch, has the power to command the armed forces, only Congress, the legislative branch, has the power to declare war. Checks and balances. Now, the Founding Fathers were trying to build a government that would stand the test of time, and they knew that in an ever-changing world, the principle of
Flexibility
was essential. The Constitution has the ability to change over time because of certain provisions built into it. For example, there's the amendment process, which allows for Congress and the states to make additions or edits to the Constitution. There's U.S. Supreme Court interpretations, which allows the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution to adapt to unique and unforeseen situations. And finally, there's the elastic clause, also called the necessary and proper clause. This clause is important because it gives the federal government the freedom to expand its power. So long as it is trying to carry out a duty specified in the Constitution, the government may take actions that are not mentioned in the Constitution to accomplish that original duty. For example, the Constitution gives the federal government the duty of running the post office. In order to do so effectively, it creates a post office website, something that is not in the Constitution, but is necessary and proper for helping to accomplish the duty of running the post office system in the first place. Finally, there's the principle of
Civil Liberties.
the original Bill of Rights and the 14th Amendment guarantee certain basic freedoms, but these rights are not unlimited. There's a little foreshadowing for you. You can expect to hear more about that as the year goes on. Those are the 8 major principles found in the Constitution, but what kind of government teacher would I be if I didn't at least give you a rundown of how the Constitution is organized so that you can read about all these principles independently should you choose to? You may assume that the Constitution is a long document, but you would be wrong. It is 4,543 words, including the signatures, which is about the size of a 10-page English essay. Get ready for those junior theses, ladies and gentlemen. It is divided into only 7 articles, each focusing on a major topic. Article 1 is about the legislative branch. Article 2 is about the executive branch. Article 3 is about the judicial branch. Article 4 is about the relationship among the states. Article 5 is about amending the Constitution. Article 6 is about the Supremacy Clause. And Article 7 is about ratification. Before all of this is one single sentence that sets the tone of the entire document. We call this the preamble or introduction to the Constitution. It says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." As clearly indicated by the first words, "We the people," the preamble of the Constitution reflects the idea of popular sovereignty. Another way of saying popular sovereignty is to say that the power is derived from the consent of the governed, that the power of this government comes from the people, and it is they who allow it to exist. This line references the Declaration of Independence, and it solidifies one of the most core beliefs of our nation in the very first line of the Constitution. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
The United States Constitution.
I hope you enjoyed this video lecture, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye!